The following podcast contains explicit language and content that may not be suitable for some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome to the Qué Spooky podcast, where two married guys share stories of paranormal encounters, urban legends, true crime, and other scary things from around the world. This is a podcast where we do the millennial pause before we start talking, and we try not to lip smack. I'm Andres.
And I'm Kevin.
And we're here, post-election.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, how have you been?
Not great.
Yeah, I'm fighting for my life. I'm surprised I haven't had a panic attack.
It's been a very strange time post-election.
Yeah.
It was like when the election happened, I had a feeling previously that something was not going to go right. Like I already had a presentiment, like something just didn't feel right from like weeks before. And I was like, I don't think that this election is going to go how we think it's going to go. And it didn't. And so I'm disappointed to say that I was proven right. So.
Yeah, it turns out a lot of people woke up at like 2, 3 in the morning with like a sick feeling. Like it was like a well documented thing, like
a palpable energy. You woke up in the middle of the night.
I did.
And I woke up with you too. That was weird. But I mean, we checked the election results and it was like, it did not look good at 3 a.m. It was not looking great.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people at this point are like sick of hearing it. I mean, it's going to affect us, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people may have voted for him and like, I guess that's fine. But ultimately, it really isn't because of everything that candidate has said about our community, about Hispanics, about Mexicans. You basically, if you voted for him, you basically turn your back on everyone.
Yeah.
And even though you may have felt like, oh, I don't know anyone that what his policies would affect, that really shouldn't matter because it's going to affect someone. It doesn't have to be someone within your inner circle. It doesn't have to be within your family. It's going to negatively affect someone in the country.
Yeah. And it's, I think like what people think it's like, oh, well, you wanted me to vote Democrat. It's like, that's not it. I think that like had the Democratic person said half of the things that Donald Trump has said and done, I was like, I would be like, I'm not voting for Kamala.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? Like to me, it's like you pick the person that has done the worst and is the worst and sold yourself out because you wanted cheaper gas. And he doesn't have the pull on the economy that people think he does.
No. I think with American politics, they prey specifically on people that are not well informed.
Yeah.
People that don't really know what exactly the president or even the executive branch is responsible for. And people fall for it. It's like, I think it's our fault that we're not prioritizing and forming ourselves. And I see a lot of people say, oh, well, do your own research. It's like, well, I don't know what you're reading because you can't even name what the executive branch does.
Yeah.
What exactly are you researching besides propaganda?
The thing is, like, people have demonized, like, ethical, like, educational, like, reputable sources. They're like, no, you should look at this 1997 looking website that I found that some person runs from out of their basement. They know what's going on. And I'm like, this person doesn't even have a job. They're just some obscure person that's never been in that kind of sphere before. And they're just putting whatever they want on the internet and you're taking it as fact. What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's true.
Do you remember that one girl that posted like on TikTok wearing like a MAGA hat and said like, my family is, what was it? My family's black And I told them that I'm voting for Donald Trump, and now they're not paying for my college. And so many people donated to her. And then turns out that she lied. And she's like, I'm just kidding. You guys are dumb. And it's like,
What? The greatest bamboozle.
what the hell?
Honestly, I think that if you voted for Donald Trump, there is no reason you should be listening to us on this podcast. This is not for you. I'm going to tell you that right now. This is not the podcast for you.
Sorry.
Because for the next 4 years, we're going to be talking shit.
Mad
the
shit.
Whole time.
Even starting with his cabinet picks. Like, be so for real.
And
the most unqualified people to be running the executive branch. Like, I need you to be so for real with me. Like, that's what you voted for. And there are so many examples of people saying, like, the fuck around and find out stuff that are happening, like, on TikTok. I've seen a lot where people are like, oh, I didn't know that that's what he meant. Well, I need you to Google shit. I need you to Google shit before the election. Like, all the research and the research that people are doing now, like, you guys should have been doing that months ago.
Yeah.
What is a tariff? People can't even answer what a tariff is. Why do you think we have imposed so many on Cuba?
It's just very disappointing.
So nobody brings stuff into Cuba. That's just an example.
It's very disappointing. I'm very disappointed in our community.
Yeah.
With a lot of people that voted for Donald Trump. But it just goes to show you the links that white supremacy goes. White supremacy has taught Latinos to hate themselves.
Yeah.
And to align themselves because they feel so far detached that it's like their parents were immigrants, but they are so mentally detached that they are first/second generation that like they can't understand that like this is directly going to affect them. Like they're so convinced that like they're so far away from it. It's like, no, you're specifically the person that they're talking about when they're talking about these things. Like you need to stop and think, stop self-hating and reflect because we're all going to suffer.
I think, well, we mentioned it before, like off the show, but we talked about how I think this is like an opportunity to kind of, because I do understand why someone would want to distance themselves from the Hispanic community. Maybe, I don't know, it's the types of people that are like, their name is Miguel, but they're like, no, my name is Michael, actually. Things like that, where they kind of are kind of embarrassed of being themselves.
They've obviously been through something to get to that point.
Maybe they felt unwelcome by the community, and maybe there was something that, you know, pushed them away. And I think we as like a community should probably refocus on selling them the idea of community back. And I mean, I mentioned it on the last episode of having to sell the idea of like new food to your parents, where it's like you have to know how to talk to them, where it's like, oh, I know they like this, so offer them something that's similar. It's like, oh, this is kind of like that. This is kind of like a gordita, or this is kind of like a tamal. I think that's kind of what we have to do to realign ourselves back to what exactly it means to be a community. It's just disappointing to hear.
It's just very difficult too. I mean, I understand that you're saying that like people may be tired of hearing this, but unfortunately, like we don't have the luxury to not talk about it.
Yeah.
And to try to turn our backs away from it because it's something that's going to affect us whether you want it to or not. If you're tired of seeing it on the news, on TikTok, Twitter, Blue Sky, whatever type of social media you use, you're tired of it. I'm sorry, but this is our reality for the next 4 years. You're not going to be able to run away from it.
And it's not to make people sad or scared more than they already are. But honestly, like I think I told you a while back, but after everything that was happening, like I said, I was surprised I didn't have a panic attack. I considered possibly ending the podcast because I felt like maybe mentally I would not be able to keep going, I guess, or emotionally. Yeah. But then after a few days thinking about it, I felt like, one, that wouldn't be fair to so many of our listeners that have been there for us. And
we need to support each other too.
Exactly. Like, I felt now more than ever, Hispanic voices, because we're going to be a community that will be mostly affected. Like DACA recipients are not all just Hispanics from Latin America. Like there are DACA recipients from all over the world. But Hispanics, I'm sure, make up a majority of it. So it's like now more than ever, Hispanic voices should be uplifted and be louder, I guess. I mentioned before that maybe we were scared of speaking in Spanish in front of, like on the street in public, but it's like now we're going to be louder. So
I definitely am.
sorry, this podcast is not going anywhere. Sorry to make everyone nervous.
We're not going anywhere.
No, you guys are actually stuck with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about it is, at the end of the day, we may have lost this battle, but the war is still happening.
Yes.
So we still need to, we definitely are able to have time to take a step away from it, cry if we need to, take a few days off. Like, I mean, I know that it's like a couple weeks after post-election, but you're allowed to mourn for the future that you thought you were going to have.
Yep.
So, but we got to regroup. We got to get it back together, and then we got to hit it harder.
And
be more present in the polls.
Yes. Be more present.
Be more educated. About,
like, reach out to your community, build a coalition. Like, there's change that can happen, and it really starts with one person, and one person, multiplies, and there's tens, and even like the election results. Yeah, he may have won, but there were tens of millions of people that voted against that. Tens of millions of people that have your back. Like tens of millions of people that are hopefully gonna show up again when it comes to midterms or during a policy that may affect our community. Like there will be tens of thousands of people that have your back. So
here we are.
And if we get deported,
see you from Mexico.
I guess we're gonna be reporting live from Mexico.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And it would be such a detriment to the country and as a whole. A lot of DACA people, a lot of people like us that have parents born from other countries, because Andres and I were born in the U.S., but if they're planning on rescinding an amendment that granted us citizenship, we would possibly be deported. If that's the case, they would be losing on a lot of educated, talented individuals.
Yeah.
And that's going to be detrimental to the U.S., but it would be a bonus to any country that we may have come from, whether that's Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador. Like, all of that talent would be going back home.
And you have to remember, again, because this is a conversation that I had with my sister. Mm-hmm. Oh, but they're not rescinding it from everyone. It'll only affect a few.
Yes.
What is to stop them there?
Exactly.
It's like once you give someone an inch, they take a mile. You should be very afraid. There are posts that are online talking about like deleting your apps that track your periods or your menstrual cycles. Like, I believe it. I'm like, delete that shit.
What the hell?
Track of it because if they're rescinding women's reproductive rights, right, or they're going to take a step back, they use the data on your apps to prove or not prove whether you may have had a miscarriage or something happened to your baby and put you in jail. That's been used before in a case. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that.
They used the data from that in a case in the past. So there are women that are online saying, hey, get rid of your apps. Start taking notes in a book.
Yeah, pen and paper.
Yep.
We're going back to pen and paper.
Hell yeah. Back to the old days. Clocking in on paper.
What the fuck? Putting
in that work.
So, and not to make this all depressing, there is at least one positive stuff that I can mention before we jump into our case today. So Barrio Drive. Do you know them?
No. You were talking about them, but I'm going to pretend like I don't know them for the sake of the podcast. So what is it? What? Huh?
So Barrio Drive is a undocumented and Latinx owned business. I found them on Instagram, I want to say, or maybe Twitter. I don't remember which one was first. But anyway, they are basically a clothing brand. And recently, after the election results, they started a DACA renewal program. Oh, no, sorry. It was a DACA renewal assistance program. So basically, they are offering, if you buy certain shirts or if you donate, all that money goes to DACA renewal. So in case that, and it's not for like any new applications, in case you need help financially for a renewal, that money is there to help you. So we urge anyone, if you are able to donate. I tried to buy a shirt and the one I wanted was sold out. So I'm like, okay,
oops,
I'll find something. If not, I'll just donate money. That's fine. But yeah, I urge everyone to reach out to them and I don't know, let them know we send you. I don't know. I'm nervous.
I did want to add a couple of things, and we apologize that sometimes it seems like our ideas, we keep like turning back and going back to something we previously mentioned like a little bit later, but like sometimes we save the fact that we don't talk about this off podcast. We start talking about something serious and we're like, no, stop talking about it. We're going to talk about it on the podcast. We can get like our actual reactions, our actual thoughts, so that I feel like those things kind of make it more real. But I want to mention two things.
Okay.
So this is something that I've mentioned before on the podcast. Just because you vote like them doesn't mean they think you're one of them. Let's say that again. Just because you vote like them doesn't make it that you're one of them. And what I mean is, just because you vote like a white person does not mean that they're going to give you a seat at their table. They're not going to pick you, because at the very end of the day, you're still a brown person in a white space.
That's true.
So just realize that you're not special. You're not that pick me person. Oh, I'm different. They're going to pick me. No, you're not. Let me be the one that bursts that bubble for you.
Yeah.
You're no different than me or you or the next primo or prima that listens to this podcast. You're still brown at the end of the day, and they know you're still brown, so they're going to treat you like a brown person.
And this is coming from two people that used to live in a red state.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you, they treat you differently. That's not to say that, all white Americans are like that, but you get a vibe. You know when someone is being disrespectful towards you.
Yes.
And I think we should lean in and support for the people that are willing there to be there for you.
And then another thing. Okay, after that, another thing. How dare you vote for yourself and then disenfranchise someone else? Have we not learned from our parents that are immigrants about how many times they've been taken advantage of in this country before maybe they got their residency status, before maybe they were legalized and had citizenship? How dare you vote to take rights away from other people when they did the same shit to your parents or your family members? What the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Again, that's not going to make them pick you. You're not like them.
I didn't want to end on such an angry tone, but I know what you mean. And, your feelings are very valid that you feel like this was very much personal.
Yes, and I'm sure that a lot of people listening to the podcast feel the same way. A lot of our primos, primas, and primes feel the exact same way that I'm feeling right now. And it's like, I want to feel bad for them because, they don't have to think about how their mom walked through the desert to get to this country.
Yeah.
They don't have to think about how they had to work under the table and pay for taxes or use somebody else's social security number to pay for taxes for years that they were never going to get back.
Only just to get ahead in life.
Yes.
Like, they did all of that just to get ahead in life.
That money is in the system, and other Americans use that money for Social Security because those things still have to get paid. We work in payroll. We know those things have to get paid whether you're documented or not documented. If you're using a social, it's the same thing. They're still going to take out Social Security and Medicare. They're still going to take out the withholdings. That money is still being used to get paid. There's no type of like programs that they use. If you try to claim your taxes and it's not your Social Security number, you get caught and deported. You can't claim those taxes and get them back. I feel like people have this idea that it's like they're taking advantage of it and they're getting that money back. It's
you think you
can't.
You think they're filing their taxes and getting a tax refund? No. If anything, most cases, they are paying more into it just so it's not a red flag that they're underpaying.
And let's just say they have kids and they have food stamps. Those food stamps is so that their kids eat. Their children are American citizens.
Yep.
They may be undocumented, but their children are American citizens, and you have to think about that. We have to take care of those kids. We always talk about how like pro-life and all this shit, but it really is only dependent on a few things. Like, let's be better.
Exactly. Wow. Okay. Well, now that we got through all that.
Yeah. Sorry, I haven't been this mad since the Vanessa Guillen case.
Exactly. Yep. And that runs very parallel to everything that's happening.
Yeah.
So,
sorry about that.
No, it's fine. I mean, we have a palate cleanser to try to lighten up the mood a little bit, but this is something serious that we had to talk about beforehand.
Yeah.
So, let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
Today, I'm covering Starved Rock.
We've been dying to do this since we moved here.
So, my sources, and it's a lot. This is a lot of information, and I felt like I had to cut a lot of it because there was just so much. I didn't want to keep going back and talking about, time of events and everything and then deviating to a tangent and saying, oh, but this also happened and this affected this thing in the future. I tried my best to try to get the larger points in here and try to be as exact as I could.
Okay.
But with something as big as this, there's going to be parts where I had to like speed it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So some of my sources are the Illinois Department of Natural Resources website, The Legend of Starved Rock essay by Katrina Favis, American Hauntings article, Parks Guidance article, a Starved Rock Lodge website article, The Sun article by Steve Brenner, Shaw Local article by Tom Collins, WSPY News article by Mark Harrington, the Chicago Sun-Times article by Stephanie Zimmerman, 103.9 WLPO article. I sound like a news person. A radio person.
LOL.
A YouTube video by the Illinois Department of Natural Resources and a YouTube video by Danielle Halen.
Sorry, I'm just trying to be different. Since the other day, I usually say laugh out loud, and you're like, why do you say laugh out loud? Just say LOL.
Yeah, just read it.
LOL.
Lol. And Wikipedia. So the YouTuber Danielle Halen, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, it's Hallan. She did 2 YouTube videos, both like an hour long, going into details of this, everything that we're going to talk about. And it was so well detailed. I recommend listening to her and watching her video after this. After this, you have to sit and listen to the whole thing. So there are some content warnings that I want to mention. There's murder, starvation, and sexual assault. So just a heads up. So, Starved Rock State Park. You've been there.
In this essay, I'm going to tell you.
Shut the fuck.
Hey, you. Yeah, you. Have you heard of Starved Rock?
I've never done that before in a paper.
I'm sure that a lot of our primas and primas have, because they were taught to do that.
An attention getter?
Yes, an attention getter into the essay. Okay, I'm ready. Let's go.
So Starved Rock State Park is a state park located southeast of the village of Utica in LaSalle County, Illinois, on the south bank of the Illinois River. It is about an hour and 45 minutes, or about 100 miles southwest from Chicago. Before European settlers, the area was inhabited by the Kaskaskia, and in 1683, the French established Fort St. Louis on the large 250-foot sandstone butte overlooking the river. So for reference, a butte is kind of like an isolated hill with steep sides and a flat top.
So a booty.
Sure. It is a smaller version of a mesa. The French actually called it le rocher, which means a rock or a boulder, I guess. So by the time the French abandoned the fort in the early 1700s due to dwindling resources during the French and Indian Wars, the local Kaskaskia people had joined the Illinois Confederation, known as the Illinois or Illini, composed of 13 tribes. So it was just like a group of tribes that were under the umbrella of the Illinois Confederation.
Mm-hmm.
So a fun fact, the word Illinois comes from the transliteration by the French explorers from the word Illiniwek. So they read it and they're like, Illinois. And they're like, so close. So the following is based on legend. I want to mention that. Sometime in the 1760s, the Illinois and the Ottawa Potawatomi were convening for a tribal council meeting in what is now Joliet. An Illinois warrior stabbed Chief Pontiac of the Ottawa tribe, seen as an act of war. Battle started between the tribes, and during one night in 1769, around 2,000 Illinois men, women, and children left their village and took refuge on the summit of the large rock. The Ottawa Potawatomi pursued the Illinois onto the butte and surrounded it. They cut water supply and prevented any supplies onto the rock. Anyone attempting to escape would be hunted down and killed. They held their siege until the Illinois eventually starved to death. The legend claims that the smell of decaying bodies could be smelt from miles away as people were left to die on the butte. One version of this legend claims that 11 Illinois warriors did survive by swimming across the river and traveling downriver to Fort St. Louis to share their tale to other tribes. After escaping, the Illinois never claimed their name again, so the Ottawa and Potawatomi wouldn't pursue them. Today, the surviving relatives of the Illinois Confederation continue on as members of the Peoria tribe of Oklahoma, located in Miami, Oklahoma. We drove through there.
Yeah, we've driven by there a few times. And I also kind of want to describe, so we've been to Starved Rock,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing is that for me, like you telling me that like 100 people, how many people would you say?
2,000.
Well, way
You're
more than
off.
100.
Yeah.
That butte is very small.
Yep.
It's like you go up, it's very steep, so they have stairs going up to the very top, and they kind of have like a little, kind of like a little boardwalk that goes all the way around. It maybe takes you like 5 minutes to walk all the way, not even 5 minutes, maybe like 2-3 minutes to walk all the way back around to come back to the stairs and go back down. The sights are great. But to think about that 2,000 people were on that butte, I cannot imagine that. They would have been standing like shoulder to shoulder.
Well, we also, when you're on there, the wooden walk goes around it. So you're not allowed into the center of the starved rock.
Yeah. But I'm trying to say like just
But yeah, I know what you mean.
walking around, it's very like that whole area is very small. I don't feel like 2,000 people would be able to fit on it.
I don't know. This is legend. I don't know.
That's crazy.
Like I mentioned at the beginning, this is an enduring legend of the area and the namesake of the park itself. Although there is no archaeological evidence of this mass starvation happening on the rock, there are several first and second-hand sources of it, such as local chiefs from nearby tribes claiming that they remember the battles that took place, and several fur traders and settlers claiming that they saw bones of the Illinois. A settler even claiming that the top of the rock was covered in human bones. In 1835, a man named Daniel Hitt purchased the land from the United States government for $85 as tenure for his time in the army. He then sold the land in 1890 to a man named Ferdinand Walther for $15,000 with intentions of developing the land into a resort. So Ferdinand Walther constructed the Starved Rock Hotel, a concession stand, and a dance hall. Every time I see the word dance hall, I think of the Jamaican music and not a location.
Oh my God. That would be interesting on that.
They were dirty whining.
On that butte.
They were dirty whining.
Stop.
So he set up walkable trails in the area and brought attention to the area, in particular with its French and Native American heritage. So he literally started all the trails that are in the area.
Wait, what do they mean they're French heritage?
Because it was the French used to live there.
They just live there. They're not from there.
No, but
I feel like Native
it's
American
because of the
heritage.
fort. The fort that was there.
It belonged to the natives before they got there.
Okay, I know. I'm not arguing. This is just
We're like mincing
part
words.
of my research.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm like mincing words here, but
well, actually,
they should not deserve to say that it's French.
yeah, but there was a French fort there.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm not arguing with you. I'm just letting you know.
I want you to agree with me.
He eventually sold the land to the Illinois State Parks Commission for $146,000. And in 1933, under Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal legislation, the Starved Rock Lodge was built. And they did not cut any type of corners. The lodge is huge, if you've ever been there. Or I guess if you haven't. It's huge. Believe me. I've been there. One of its most notable features were its elegant fireplaces made out of limestone. And if you remember from previous episodes, limestone has this
Reputation.
Yeah, it has a reputation. It has this notoriety, I guess.
Notoriety?
Notoriety. What did you say? I've only ever seen the word written.
Notoriety.
Notoriety.
Don't worry. It's like me with oh my God, what was it? Homage?
Homage.
Yeah, I was like homage, and then it's like homage. I'm like, bitch, what the fuck?
I've said homage. I don't care. Anyway,
it's difficult as Spanish speaker. Maybe like as people that like we learned Spanish first and then learned English second.
Mm-hmm. In Spanish, it's homage.
Yeah.
So think about that for a second. So limestone is known or believed to be able to retain electromagnetic energy or like, what is it called? I don't want to say like supernatural energy because that doesn't make sense.
I watched, do you remember the other special I was watching on HBO the other day about like this house in, I think in Missouri, where there's like sightings of like aliens in the house?
No, I fell asleep.
And ghosts. Okay, well, I was watching that and they interviewed a physicist, and a physicist says that like the minerals in the rock make it conduits for types of energies. So like electricity, like kinetic energy and stuff like that. And he says that like it's very true that they back in the day they used to use stones as conduits for things because they like hadn't developed copper wiring and things like that. And so it's like those rocks and those stones and minerals can hold a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So it was like he confirmed it for me. I was like, oh, this guy like is a college professor, so he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah. I mean, it's also believed that a lot of places that are paranormally active are said to be built on, or just so happen to have like underneath them like limestone and similar stone like that kind of retains that energy.
Like mineral rich rock.
Yes. So I wanted to mention that it was specifically said it was made from limestone. In 1960, Starved Rock was declared a National Historic Landmark. So today, the Starved Rock Hotel doesn't exist. Instead, the lodge is where people visit instead. Do you remember we drove by it during our tour and they're like, the hotel used to be here and now it's just like the foundation of it, I guess.
Yeah.
But
yeah. I thought you were saying Hard Rock Hotel and not Starved Rock.
Hard Rock Hotel. Like, this is its cousin, the Starved Rock Hotel.
Oh, they didn't have food.
What?
Because Hard Rock hotels used to have really good restaurants, and the Starved Rock Hotel, they didn't have any food there.
Oh no, they had a concession stand and a dance hall.
It was a joke.
Okay, mine was a joke too. So that was a lot of history stuff, but I felt like it was important. I mean, it was kind of the purpose of the namesake. So that was a quick history of the area, but now the scary stuff. So even though the legend of Starved Rock isn't generally agreed that it actually happened, the area did have a large Illinois population nearby. Because of this, visitors to the area hear faint drum beats throughout the canyons. In one particular case, a group of hikers overheard drumming and chanting in one of the canyons. This happened in the middle of summer, so they went to investigate thinking that it was some kind of like reenactment, because according to them, it was pretty loud.
Yeah.
As soon as they arrived in the canyon, the drumming and chanting stopped, and there was nobody there. This is actually something that we talked about on our tour when we did the haunted tour at Starved Rock, but I've also heard this online before. Visitors have reported seeing native people dressed in indigenous style clothing. In one case, a couple hiking in the area witnessed two native men further down the trail, one of them standing and the other crouching down, and they were both just staring at them. As the couple got closer, the two men vanished.
You know what I think is a kind of interesting theory sometimes? Like when there's sightings like this, it's because the fabric of time is folding. And so to the people that, like to the native people, it's actually like 1820.
Yeah.
And then to the modern people, it's modern times. And the timelines are crossing and they're able to see each other. And they're like, what the fuck? What are these two people? Why are their clothes so weird? So it's like modern people show up back in time to them, but to us, we're seeing people back from the past.
And both of them are thinking that they're ghosts.
Yes.
When in reality, it's like, whoa, what was that?
Yeah. So those are that theory is actually starting to become like it's getting a lot of traction because we're getting a lot. I feel like as a paranormal community, like quantum theory, string theory, like dimensions, it's starting to become like a very popular topic in all arenas.
Yeah.
The movie arena, the supernatural arena, like through books and even like in research with actual scientists. Like it's starting to become like, it's like, I feel like we're going to have a big breakthrough soon. Like it's going to be like the next thing that there's a breakthrough. So like as we research more and more into this, there's more theories like that come out. Pretty
like
interesting.
A multiverse.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yep. That's interesting. Because I know, I mean, I didn't think about that when I read this. I just honestly thought ghosts. That didn't cross my mind. But this reminds me, sorry, just a quick little tangent, of two women. I think someone sent it to us on Instagram. And I'm so sorry. I didn't write it down because I didn't think I was going to talk about this. But it was an article of two women that I want to say they were in France or something. That they were walking around like an old building, like an old chateau in France, and they stumbled into a garden party. And they were like, oh shit, we didn't know there was an event today. They felt very like unprepared. They felt like they were intruding. And the people there, they all were dressed in like very old, like French Revolution type of clothes, or before the French Revolution, and that someone saw them and asked them something in French, but they didn't. I think they were like from the UK or from the US. They just spoke English, and they're like, we don't know what he's saying. So when they walked the other way, and I think they were on a tour, they found their tour guide again, and then they made their way back to where they saw the people. Everything was gone.
Yeah.
And
you hear
they
a lot
believe,
of stories like that.
Yeah, they believe that they fell into like a time loop where they accidentally went back in time, walked in on a party, and they're like, oh, what is happening?
Yeah.
So,
like, another good example of this, do you remember the movie with Nicole Kidman? Is it The Others?
Yeah.
Where, like, spoiler alert, this movie came out a really, really long time ago, but like,
whoa.
There's
Spoilers.
ghosts in the house. Like, you're seeing the story through the point of view of Nicole Kidman and her family, but really you find out that they've been dead the whole time and they're ghosts in their little ghost dimension, but it's parallel to the real world where a real world family has moved into the house and they're moving furniture, they're remodeling. So Nicole Kidman's family sees these people as ghosts and they're in their house and they're moving their things and they're causing destruction in their house, where it's like it's happening parallel in another dimension. Like, that to me could be also like, well, Nicole Kidman and her kids are actually there in the past and time is folding in on itself, so they're seeing the future as well. Like, you can look at it two different ways. It doesn't just have to be ghosts.
That movie shook me.
That movie was fucking good.
And that
twist, I was like, ooh, bitch, the fucking that twist was so good, it twisted my neck. I couldn't sleep right for a week.
I was screaming.
Damn.
And that scene where, like, it looks like the little girl is under, like, a bed sheet, but really it was just like the face of an old woman. I still think about that, and for a while I was so scared.
I still think about that, but you know what I actually think about? Michael Jackson and Scary Movie when they parodied that.
What the fuck?
That was so funny.
Recently our friend Travers and Megan posted on it because they were having like a movie night too, and they posted that, and I don't know why, like, I had not thought about that movie until they posted it. So Travers posted like they were watching The Others, and I was like, it like reactivated me. Bitch, I don't know. I was like,
we need to watch this right now.
No, I used to watch that movie all the time, or not like willingly or putting in the DVD or anything.
Yeah,
but it used to be on TV so many times for some reason that it was just on, and I would watch it.
Yeah. Sorry, like this, we went on a tangent, but I feel like it was pertinent to like what we were talking about. So
it was monumental to my personal upbringing.
Yeah. So, and this is a very interesting theory I wanted to talk about just because of like the story that you told.
Yeah, no, I didn't even think about that. So thank you for your contribution. So local legends also claim that the ghost of Chief Pontiac is seen wandering the area, especially during moonlit nights. The lodge is also rumored to be spiritually active. Staff and guests report hearing footsteps with no source, flickering lights, and the smell of cigar smoke in empty rooms.
And I want to note, sorry, like another jumping in here
and
again.
One more thing.
The first time we went to Starved Rock, first of all, I want to mention that like that place is very beautiful. It's not like when you go and you see like these great valleys in Canada with like these lakes, and it's like, wow, or it's not Colorado, but it's very beautiful. In Starved Rock, it's almost like ethereal. It feels weird.
It's not like on a, what's it called? It's not like Colorado where there's like mountains and valleys. Yeah, it's more like you're in the woods.
Yes, but like it's very like beautiful woods and like very beautiful. There's like cliffs and stuff. It's really, really nice. If anybody ever has like is close to the area, wants to visit, please visit because it's worth it. But when we were done with our hike, we just so happened to go into the lodge to get something to drink. We ended up doing like a 6-mile hike when we were only expecting like 3 miles. Like we went too far, turned back around. It was a mess. I digress. But anyways, so when we were going to the cafe, we went to the restroom first, and they're like, the restroom is going to be on the other side of the hotel. Go straight down the hall, take a left. It's over there by the front counter. Well, we walked by, and I immediately got a feeling when we walked by a room. Remember?
Yep.
And then when we went to the cafe, bought a couple things, and then came back through to head back to the car through the cafe, or through the hotel, because it was kind of hot outside. And we walked by that room, and I was like, hey, this hotel is haunted, and this fucking room right here is a haunted room. I feel it. I feel the energy coming off of the door.
I think I was walking behind you when we walked past it, and I felt the back of your neck hair stand up.
You saw it?
Hold on. Yeah, I saw it. I saw it, the neck on the back of your hair. Wait.
The hair on the back of my neck.
the hair on the back of your neck.
Yeah,
yes.
because remember I got Hey, I was like, look, I got goosebumps. It gave me goosebumps on my arm.
I saw you like turn and look at the door and then keep going, but I saw the hair on the back of your neck.
Yeah, and then I was like, look at my goosebumps. I'm like, do you know anything about this hotel? And you were like, no, not really. And I'm like, this hotel's haunted and that room is haunted.
Yeah.
And then we left it at that, and we did our research about Starved Rock afterwards. Like, we knew that the trail area was haunted because of like the story of Starved Rock, because you had told me about it before.
Yeah.
But we didn't know anything about the lodge.
No. Mm-mm.
So it was very interesting. I wanted to add that in there.
So this was actually shared during our ghost tour at Starved Rock back in October. During COVID lockdown in 2020, the lodge kept all of their staff employed, but it had limited guests staying there. On one floor that was confirmed vacant, a group of house cleaners were cleaning each room when one of them opened one of the rooms and saw a woman looking out of the window. The woman noticed the house cleaner, so she turned around. The woman apologized and left the room and closed the door behind her. Another housekeeper heard this and asked the housekeeper who she was talking to, because there should have no one been on the floor. And the house cleaner said, oh, I was talking to the woman in that room. And the house cleaner says, well, there shouldn't be anyone here. They opened the door and no one was in there. But the house cleaner claims that she saw someone look outside the window, and when she noticed her, the woman turned around.
You mean housekeeper?
What'd I say?
House cleaner.
Oh.
You said house cleaner like 20 times.
Oh, well. Sorry.
I mean, I guess it's a house, a very big house with lots of rooms.
Well, they do clean the house.
Yeah.
They do be cleaning. But, yeah, that was shared during our ghost tour. But, like, yeah, the house cleaner was, like, shook.
Did you get the story of the owner in here as well?
No. What
Don't
happened?
you remember that the owner stayed at the guy that was doing the tour? I don't know if you remember this.
No, I don't. I forgot to include this because I forgot about it. But go ahead.
He told us that the owner stayed. Remember the same thing. Like, it was like during COVID time, they really didn't have any traffic, so the owner came and stayed at the hotel while they did some renovations.
Okay.
Because traffic was so slow. Well, they stayed there and they only lasted a few weeks because they were like, we're done. Didn't know, like, we had heard the stories of this hotel being haunted and we didn't really know. We're leaving. We're going back home. So they left. Do you remember that?
What? I mean, kind of.
Yes, the owner stayed there and didn't last very long and left. They're like, we hear people walking upstairs all the time. There's nobody up there.
Wow.
I cannot believe you forgot about that.
I swear, this is haunted. I swear. When
I was like, that story, like, when they told it to us on the tour, I was shook. I was like, there's no way. There's no way.
So, that was the lodge. That was all the paranormal stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, another reason the area has infamy is because of the murders that happened in 1960.
I remember that we talked about this on the tour as well.
So, I want to kind of preface this and say that this was very hard researching because I feel like it happened not too long ago.
And it's still happening.
So, this happened in the 1960s, which was 60 years ago, but it's still happening, kind of, not like murders, obviously, but this case that I'm gonna talk about still is in litigation, I guess.
It's still going on.
I'll explain in a second.
Yeah.
But a lot of family members that were affected are still alive today. Like, I mean, this is not that long ago, so I want to be as respectful as I can to the families that were affected.
Yeah.
So on March 14th, 1960, 3 women, Frances Murphy, age 47, Mildred Lindquist, age 50, and Lillian Oding, age 50, from Riverside, a suburb of Chicago, took a trip to the state park. They all knew each other from Riverside Presbyterian Church, and they all felt like they needed a quick getaway, especially Mrs. Oding, who had almost spent an entire winter nursing her husband back to health after he experienced a heart attack. So they planned a 4-day trip where they would just hike the trails, bird watch, and enjoy being outdoors. It's March, so it's still kind of cold. I don't think warm weather actually starts until like mid to late April around the area. So when they got to the lodge, they checked into the rooms, had lunch, and decided to go for a hike. A lodge staff member later recalled that they remarked to them that it was a beautiful day for a hike, So they would be making their way to St. Louis Canyon. Just chit-chatting. Why wouldn't you? They left the lodge with a camera and a small pair of binoculars around 1 p.m. that day. The three women made their way to the canyon, which was only 1 mile away from the cabin. St. Louis Canyon is known in the park for being very aesthetic. It has a small waterfall during the warm season and a frozen waterfall during the winter. I don't think we've been there yet.
Probably not.
I think we've been down to like Cougar Canyon, but all of like the promotional pictures always use like St. Louis Canyon because of the waterfall that it has. And the frozen one is very pretty. Hopefully next time we go, it'll be frozen. So they stopped occasionally to take photos of the scenery and of each other, and the women would never return back to the lodge. The strange thing about this here is that no one noticed. According to police reports, the husbands of the three women began to call in to check on them to make sure that they arrived okay, but the calls were never returned. Staff that answered the phone instead claimed that the women had gone on a hike and suggested they call back in the morning. Sorry, I'm going to stop really quickly. It is weird because hiking is not recommended when the sun sets. This area does not have there's canyons. So you may be on top of a canyon and all it is below you is just the canyon. So they don't recommend that you go walking or hiking when the sun sets because there's no lights out there. It's just the forest. So it's weird to me that they were like, oh, they're on a hike. Like it can be nighttime and you're not questioning it.
And keep in mind here that during the wintertime, the sun does go down at like 4 p.m.
Yes. So the same thing happened the next day on the 15th when no calls were returned. A staff member that answered the husband's calls mistakenly claimed that the three women had breakfast and were out of the lodge at the time. So because they said that, the husbands were like, okay, that's fine. I'll call back tomorrow or something. That night, a massive snowstorm hit the area that dropped over a foot of snow with snowdrifts as high as 25 feet. The next morning on the 16th, the husbands called again and this time asked the lodge staff to check on the women to make sure that they were okay. The maintenance worker, Terry Martin, volunteered to check in the rooms, and when he walked in, he noticed that the beds had not been slept in and that the luggage hadn't even been opened. Basically, the rooms didn't look like they had been lived in.
They really just got there, put their bags down and went hiking and never came back.
The one thing he did notice was the rain boots that the women had left were not there. Not wanting to panic, he went out to the parking lot to check if the car was there. And it was. It was covered in a fresh pile of snow, signifying that it hadn't been moved. Around 8 a.m., Terry Martin called the sheriff's department and the women's husbands that these women were now missing. When the police showed up, they began questioning guests and staff at the lodge to see if anyone had possibly seen any of the women, and they concluded that they hadn't been seen since Monday, so 2 days prior. They called nearby hotels and hospitals to confirm that they hadn't gone somewhere else. Although the area is very beautiful, it can get dangerous, especially in snowy climates, and if you're unprepared, you could end up in a difficult trail. So they started to think something happened and they possibly could have gotten hurt. Police and staff started organizing a search in the area, starting with popular destinations like French Canyon and St. Louis Canyon. Henry Wolford and 5 others from the nearby Illinois Youth Commission camp arrived there to help out in the search around 11 a.m., and they were assigned to search St. Louis Canyon. So this canyon is considered a box canyon, meaning that it has one way in that functions as an exit too, with the other sides of the canyon just being 15 feet high canyon walls. At the far end of the canyon is a small cave about 5 feet from the ground, and the group found the bodies of the 3 missing women there, all lined up at the mouth of the cave. 2 of the women were laying side by side while the other lay about 4 feet away. The group called for help right away. 2 pieces of evidence in the area stood out the most: a bent camera and a pair of binoculars that had been broken in half. Both were covered in blood. Based on this, it was assumed that the women used these items to fight off whoever had attacked them. Observing the scene, there was a spot nearby where the murders were likely to have taken place, with drag marks that led to the cave where the women were. There were footprints in the snow that didn't match any of the women's shoes, confirming that there had to have been at least one attacker. The women's clothes had been ripped almost in haste, and they were nude from the waist down. Although initial investigations believed that the motive of the attack was for sexual assault, the women had been beaten in the face several times in an extreme way that were almost unrecognizable, making investigators believe they had been out of rage, maybe. Along with that, St. Louis County State Attorney Harland Warren found a frozen tree branch covered in blood 6 feet away from the cave, potentially being the murder weapon. It had been used as a club, and it was 3 feet long, 4 inches in diameter, and weighed about 10 pounds. The 3 bodies were then taken to the nearby Hulse Funeral Home in Ottawa for autopsies. More details were discovered during these autopsies that were able to shed more light into what happened that day. For starters, Mrs. Oding and Mrs. Murphy both had twine wrapped around their wrists that had signs of having been cut by a knife. This was the only point of evidence that showed a knife was part of this equation, so no knife had been used on the women, making some believe that there had to have been more than one person. One that had used the tree branch and another that deserved the attack, potentially. Some at the sheriff's station weren't fully convinced, though, claiming that it didn't really prove that there were multiple attackers, that it could have just been one person that had cornered the women into the canyon, tied them up, cut them free one by one with a knife to attack them individually. I don't know. Along with that, the autopsy confirmed that the clubbing from the tree branch was the cause of death, so there were no gun or knife wounds that actually caused the death. There were no signs of sexual assault, so that was ruled out, even though the word had already spread to local newspapers who started printing that almost immediately. They confirmed that the women absolutely put up a fight against the attacker, with chunks of hair actually being found in one of the victim's hands. Well, it was one of the victim's hands, another one in another victim's gloves. But yeah, there were just many hair samples. So the authorities first had to ask themselves how these women were targeted, because there were no direct trails from the lodge to the St. Louis Canyon, meaning someone had to have been following them from the lodge. On the 14th, there had been on the 14th, which was the day that they disappeared, there had been 26 visitors and 46 employees at the lodge when the 3 women arrived, and the police had intentions of interviewing everyone. During the interviews, everyone underwent polygraph tests and passed. Since the initial motive was believed to be sexual assault, the police department planned on checking every registered sex offender in LaSalle County. No one actually saw them on the trails, so we don't know if they stopped and talked to somebody or somebody stopped and talked to them. But there are theories that believe that some people driving by did see them stop and talk to a car or a group of people in a car. Police continued searching for evidence at the scene, and one idea that was brought up was checking the camera roll to build a more exact trajectory or timeline specifically, because they wanted to see if maybe the women captured their attacker on film. So the word spread in the area of what happened to these women, and it shook the community. From what I've understood, the towns nearby were very tight-knit communities, so everyone knew each other, and no one really locked their doors at night. And when we visited, I felt like I got that vibe too, where it's it was just small community. There was a local market there. We stopped, and it felt like we were, I don't know for you, but it felt like we were interjecting, kind of. Not that we were unwelcome, but it felt like everyone kind of knew each other, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. You mean interrupting?
Sure. I'm just bad at English today. I'm sorry. So when something like this happens, it really affects the community, and the people start throwing around their suspicions. Guns and deadbolt locks almost sold out in the area, and foot traffic to Starved Rock dropped drastically. It didn't help that radio broadcasters and newspapers reported that the case had very slow progress into the investigation, so that only made people more anxious.
Yeah.
It scared people, and they're like, oh, there's a killer on the loose. Going back to the camera film that was sent to be developed, four photos came back, all having been taken on the day of the attack. They all seemed like normal photos of the 3 women enjoying the scenery in the park. For one of them, however, the state police claimed that a man could be seen behind trees approaching the women. This particular photo was triple exposed, which only made it more eerie because it only helped reinforce that maybe Mrs. Lindquist, who took the photo, spotted the man and jumped from being startled and held the shutter down longer. That's just his theory, though. LaSalle County Sheriff Ray Utsi started spreading this photo to newspapers, even going as far as providing a description of their suspect. And I don't remember the exact details, but they're like, oh, he's this tall, he has this color hair, he weighs this much. However, many experts didn't support this, claiming that they didn't see what he was seeing. So the photo was sent to be professionally analyzed, which proved that it wasn't a person. It was just a shadow of a tree. Several hundreds of leads were sent to the LaSalle County and state police departments on suspects that could solve this case, but many of them didn't lead anywhere. There were a few that did seem promising, but there was no actual evidence or description strong enough to know where to even begin to find the suspect or the suspects. And there wasn't anything linking them to having been or prove that they were there, especially with the evidence that they only had at the time. At this point, we're a month into the sheriff's office leading the investigation because they refused to hand over the case to the state police, who had more funding and resources. The sheriff's office used a local lab who allegedly had 2 employees who would then send it to a lab in Rochester as a second opinion, while the state police had access to their offices in Chicago or to the FBI with more sophisticated equipment. I bring this up because on the 19th of April, the results from the Rochester lab samples came back for the hair. Sorry, I forgot to specify that. So the Rochester lab, which is the second lab that got this, they claimed that the hair was actually 2 samples. One was coarse brown hair that allegedly came from a middle-aged man, and the other was thin blonde hair allegedly from a teenage boy. So this was a great finding, because now it supports the idea that there were multiple attackers with specific features that could be honed in on. They're like, okay, we're looking for this guy that looks like this and this guy that looks like this. However, the state lab, who had received the samples first, claimed that the 2 hair samples actually belonged to the same person, a woman. So now they're getting conflicting information from the forensic labs, who were supposed to be deciphering the little evidence that they had to go off of. At this point, the trail went cold for months. The fumble with the lab spread throughout the media, and it made the public lose faith that the case could be solved. It made the sheriff's office and the state attorney both look bad. The only solid evidence that they had were the twine found at the scene of the crime. So Harlan Warren, which I mentioned before was the state attorney, discovered that the twine was made up of 2 types of twine, one that had a 20-count thread and the other that had a 12-count thread. With that information, he could start finding where this twine came from, so logically, he started at the lodge. And I know that twine may sound like something so mundane and insignificant, but stay with me. They traced the manufacturers, who confirmed that they did supply it to the lodge. While investigating the lodge, he easily found both types of twine used in the murder. While investigating the lodge, he easily found both kinds of twine used in the murder, and there they were actually used for wrapping food. So Harlan at least narrowed down that the suspect had access to the lodge's kitchen, so he either worked there or had access to the lodge kitchen on the day of the murder. So even though all lodge staff who had worked that day had already undergone a polygraph test and all passed, on the 16th of November 1960, Harlan called them all back in to undergo another polygraph test with a specialist from a prominent Chicago firm. There wasn't a single person, a single employee from the lodge that was uncooperative. All of them were willing to cooperate with the police or with the sheriff. When they asked them, hey, you guys are going to have to drive to Chicago to undergo another polygraph test, all of them were like, okay. Several of the employees passed the test until they got to one particular employee. As soon as his polygraph ended, Harlan noticed the examiner's face had gone pale, and when the employee left, the examiner turned to Harlan and said, "That's your man." This case's lead suspect was now 21-year-old Chester Otto Weger. He was married and had 2 young children and had been employed at the lodge as a dishwasher until a few months after the murders. He was very cooperative with the police and he had an alibi. Like all other employees, he had also passed the first round of lie detector tests, and when asked what he had been doing during the time of the murders, he had been at the lodge, according to him, he had been at the lodge writing love letters to a woman who was not his wife, while blasting music from the jukebox. Even though he claimed that he had been writing with paper he received from the receptionist desk, and he claimed that it was a very public area, no one was able to corroborate anything that he claimed. On the day of the murders, he had actually showed up at the lodge with scratches on his face, and when he was questioned about it, he claimed that he had cut himself accidentally while shaving. When asked to bring in what he had been wearing on the day of the murders, he surrendered a buckskin jacket, and the police noticed suspicious dark stains on them, which he claimed to be either raccoon blood or squirrel blood. Police insisted that it was human blood. As a side note, this was the 1960s, so technology to match blood to a victim hadn't been invented yet. The blood was never tied to any of the victims. After this was confirmed to be blood, he was immediately put under constant surveillance. When searching more into Chester's past, they discovered that he actually matched the description of a suspect who had bound a teenage girl and a teenage boy and then assaulted the girl in the nearby Matheson State Park in September of 1959. When they brought in the girl for questioning, she identified Chester from a photo lineup. This lineup seemed a little inconsistent, though, because the group of men that were there, out of all of them, Chester was the youngest one, with all the rest of them being almost twice his age. So to me, it seemed like he stuck out, and it seemed like he stuck out intentionally. Although he had enough evidence to request an arrest warrant, and because it was an election year, he didn't want to make it seem as if he had rushed in on a suspect just to close out the case. Funny enough, he ended up losing the election. So with that out of the way, he requested the arrest warrant for the 1959 assault, hoping that he could confess to the Starved Rock murders too. Once in custody, they questioned Chester for hours. And after so long, he asked to see his family. So they brought in his parents to speak with him. They gave him some time to speak with his parents, but after they left, one of the deputies went back in and asked, "Chester, why don't you tell me about it? There are just the two of us here. Just tell me about it." He responded with, "All right, I did it. I got scared. I tried to grab the pocketbook, and they fought back, and I hit them." This pocketbook in question was actually Mrs. Murphy's camera. And this is all coming from one of the deputies. When asked why he moved the bodies into the small cave, he said he had spotted a plane above him and he got scared that it was state police, so he moved them from being seen from above. A few days later, it was confirmed that a plane had flown over the vicinity with a pilot's testimony and logbook corroborating it. Uyghur signed the confession and confessed to the crime several times after that, even going back to the scene of the crime to reenact the murders as police and reporters stood by and watched. After meeting with his attorney, he then started denying that he committed the murders, claiming that the deputies who interrogated him had actually threatened him several times. According to him, he had actually been in Oglesby, a town about 6 miles from the state park, during the time of the murders. He claims that he was actually getting a haircut. His barber, and I'm sorry, I forgot to write down his barber's name, but he actually testified in court, and he backed him up. Not in court, sorry. Before court, he said, yeah, I was with him. I cut his hair. In court, he said he wasn't. And after speaking to his family, someone in his family, I think it was his girlfriend, said that after court, he went to her house and he said, I lied. Like I lied on court because someone was threatening me. So Chester claimed that the two deputies, Bill Dummett and Wayne Hess, had threatened him with a gun in order to get him to take the fall for the murder. They coached him to mention the plane at the time of the murder, and they coached him and walked him through on how to reenact the murders. According to him, the deputies told him to start by saying that he only meant to rob the three women, that he tied them up to prevent them from following him, that one of them got loose and attacked him, and that he in turn killed them all to prevent them from identifying him. The trial officially began on the 20th of January 1961, with the newly elected state attorney Robert E. Richardson leading the prosecution, along with attorney Anthony Racuglia. Judge Leonard Hoffman, who presided over the trial, suggested having Harlan Warren step in as a special prosecutor for the case, but Richardson declined. The prosecution only filed charges for one of the murders against Uyghur, because in case of a mistrial, they could file charges for the other two. At the time, they were seeking the death penalty if found guilty. On the 3rd of March 1961, the jury found Chester Uyghur guilty of murder of Lillian Oding, but rejected the state's request to sentence him to death, instead choosing life imprisonment. And he was formally sentenced on the 3rd of April 1961 and incarcerated at Statesville Penitentiary in Joliet. After the penitentiary closed in 2002, he was moved to the Illinois River Correction Center in Canton. While in prison, Uyghur professed his innocence but was denied parole several times. After his sentencing, the local area was torn, with some fully believing he had been responsible for the murders, while others believing he was innocent and had been played by the state attorney to get a conviction for the murders. Those that defend his innocence claim that the evidence used against him would not hold up in court today. Uyghur continues to claim that he was framed for the murders by the two deputies who questioned him, noting that his confession predates reading someone their Miranda rights. Fast forward to recent years. On the 21st of November 2019, Chester Uyghur was granted parole and was officially released from prison to a halfway house for elderly former convicts on the 21st of February 2020. In August of 2022, DNA tests confirmed that the hair samples found at the scene of the crime that was used as evidence did not belong to Chester Uyghur. In December 2023, his attorney, Andy Hale, urged Will County State's Attorney James Glasgow to vacate Uyghur's conviction of the murder of Lillian Oding, and that he believed the murders had connections to the mob instead. In March of 2004, so literally a few months ago, Attorney Hale presented to the special prosecution at the bid for exoneration that the hair samples were rerun through a state database with no results. So because Uyghur is in the system there, they got no hits. The hair samples were then analyzed against a genealogical database to identify potential suspects through a genetic profile. That's kind of how they found the Golden State Killer.
Yeah.
The same way.
Yep.
Essentially, you may not get an exact match from these databases, but you can determine if the DNA matches with someone partially. So depending on the amount of similarity, you can determine where the suspect lies on the match's family tree. So exactly like they found the Golden State Killer. Mm-hmm. So it's like they found a slight match, and they found out, oh, this person matches this amount of percentage of DNA, meaning this is their uncle or something like that.
Yeah.
According to court documents, the hair was found to be one of three brothers: Leo Bray, Charles Bray, or Edward Bray, having passed away in 1972, 1981, and 1960, respectively. And I want to mention that this is all alleged. I'm not saying they did it. This is all alleged from court documents. These three men all lived in Utica, within walking distance of the state park. All three men would have been 60 years or older at the time of the murders. Andy Hale cited multiple pieces of physical evidence that should be looked at again, and he claimed that the murders may have been the result of a Chicago Mafia hit. On the 12th of April 2024, during Uyghur's bid for exoneration, Attorney Hale pushed to test the 4 pieces of physical evidence, to which Judge Michael Jans ruled that only one piece, the wooden branch, could be analyzed, claiming that the other 3 pieces would not lead to proving Uyghur's innocence, and that the court was more interested in the wooden branch because it was the murder weapon. So Judge Jans also claimed that the hair sample not belonging to Uyghur doesn't really exonerate him either. Basically, it doesn't prove that he didn't commit the murders, because the hair sample doesn't necessarily prove who did the murder. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I felt like I had to reread that. And it's like, okay. And I guess the way that I understand it is that just because your hair is found on someone's clothes doesn't mean that you committed a murder.
Mm-hmm.
It may be just that they had access to that person at some point.
It might have not made sense, but it made sense to me.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of there's always 2 dumb bitches saying exactly. That's us.
What? Oh, okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
So Chester Uyghur's next court appearance for his bid for exoneration is on the 27th of November 2024, which, as of recording this, hasn't happened yet. His attorney, Andy Hale, has stated that if the 85-year-old is exonerated, they plan on suing the state of Illinois for wrongful conviction and imprisonment for 60 years.
And you were shook when you were telling me this last night, and I was like, don't fucking tell me. Wait till the podcast.
Because it was 60 years for a total of money that's $300 million in damages. At the time of Uyghur's incarceration, he had been the longest-serving inmate in the state of Illinois' history.
Mm-hmm.
I just like an additional side note, on the 21st of December 2021, HBO Max actually released a 3-part documentary called The Murders of Starved Rock. It was produced by Mark Wahlberg and follows David Racuglia, the son of Anthony Racuglia, which is one of the prosecuting attorneys. If you are interested in knowing more about this case, I highly, highly suggest watching this. With everything I've said, I would be very surprised if Chester Uyghur is not exonerated. And I don't want to make a decision because I said, like, there's a lot of people that do say, like, yeah, even though a lot of evidence doesn't point to him, a lot of evidence does point at him. Like him showing up with scratches on his face, him lying on the lie detector. And I don't necessarily think that a lie detector is 100% like true. Like someone could be telling the truth, but the lie detector says, oh no, their heat temperature went up a little bit, so now they're lying. I don't think that should be held up in court, and I don't think it was really. But I don't know. Personally, I feel like after going through all this, reading all this, watching those YouTube videos, watching the documentary, I don't know. I think he's innocent. Ugh.
Out of respect for the family
Yeah.
and everyone that's involved, I don't know. We'll see what the court case says.
Yeah. And it does suck because it's like,
I don't have a degree in any of that, so we'll just let the experts handle it.
exactly. Yeah. And that's literally just what I think. It does, like him being already convicted doesn't necessarily mean that he isn't, because
He isn't what?
a trial, I already found him guilty once.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm not going to be like, oh, they're wrong, because we don't really know all the details of the court case, I guess. Or I guess I didn't really provide them or look too much into it. But I don't know. I mean, I'm interested to see what happens next week, I think. But yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
And that was Starved Rock.
Thank you. That was interesting. There's a lot going on over
There
there.
was a lot going on. Jeez, man. I feel like this is the longest case that I've covered.
Yeah.
The longest.
I kind of wanted to make an interjection here. I kind of made a reference earlier to period apps being used to prosecute people.
Okay.
So it looks like I wanted to clarify. It looks like there was information used to in the state of Mississippi to prosecute a lady named Letice Fisher, and this was because her infant she had a baby and the baby died. So they were like, "Did you like?" They were trying to say that she had murdered her baby, and so it was a mess. But they used some of the stuff that she had Googled, and a lot of like internet footprint. They used her internet footprint to help prosecute her. But there's also former officials, like the state health director in 2019 used menstrual tracking data apps from Planned Parenthood to investigate potential abortions. Additionally, it's claimed that during the Trump administration, menstrual tracking apps were reportedly used to monitor pregnant teens at detention centers. So this has been done before.
Oh my God.
So sorry, I felt like I needed to give more context and more information about that.
Yeah.
So the case for Letice Fisher, not necessarily the period app, but her digital footprint was used to prosecute her.
Yeah.
So,
oh, dude.
sorry, I kind of just squirreled away, but I felt like that was really important. I needed to mention it.
No, it's okay. I mean, I can go back to what I was talking about, but basically, I feel like, okay, if he is found like not guilty and he's exonerated, the victim still didn't find like justice, I guess. They didn't find who actually did the murders. And at this point, like if he is found not guilty and is exonerated, like the state did mess up badly, because there were so many people, especially on the prosecuting side, that were like, no, he's guilty, like I don't care, like he's guilty. They dropped the ball several times during this investigation, and that's not something anybody can deny. Like, for example, they mixed the victim's clothes with the murder clothes, like not the murder clothes, Uyghur's jacket, like his jacket, they mixed it along with the victim's. So even if they did want to retest for DNA now, it's already been contaminated. It's been way too like intermixed with each other. In the case that he's not exonerated and he is found guilty, then I mean that's it. He's guilty, and I mean he's out of prison already, so he can just live his life as a convicted felon. This was a lot. So thank you for joining me on that. Besides that, I think Starved Rock is a really nice place with a lot of obviously history. And I recommend it if you're in the area. Go hiking. I feel like it's nice any time of the year, really. So that was my case.
Thank you. That was good. I really appreciated it. So that was a lot of heaviness there. So we're going to do the palate cleanser now. What do you have for the palate cleanser?
I think I mentioned this on the. See, I don't know. I remember talking about it to you, but I don't remember if I mentioned it on the podcast. And I think I did this last episode too, where I was like,
You did.
did I talk about this? But Salem's Lot.
Pretty sure we did talk about that. Yes.
Okay, so it is. I was gonna mention it, but I was like, no.
There's a remake.
There's a remake.
Yeah, we talked about it.
It came out October 3rd on HBO Max.
Uh-huh.
And my parents already watched it. We didn't yet, but they remember watching the first one, and they said that they're both good, but they're both scary in a different way. And I thought that was interesting. How it's like, I felt like before the original, I think came out in like the 60s or the 80s. I'm sorry, but it had such practical effects to the horror, and I think that's what made it scary.
Yeah.
Whereas with this one, the remake, it uses a lot of like, I don't even know the technical term. I want to say CGI. I'm just going to say CGI. It uses a lot of CGI for some scenes. So that makes it scary. But yeah, I recommend it. We're going to check it out too.
Yep. I want to watch it.
I remember at the beginning of the episode, I started off by saying that after the election, I'm surprised I haven't had a panic attack. I actually did have a panic attack like mid-October, right?
Yeah.
And that was crazy because I felt it coming. Like, and I haven't had one
out of a dead sleep to have a panic attack.
And I felt it coming where it's like I feel like a tenseness. I feel like it starts as a tingling around your fingertips, but I'm like, oh God, okay. And I got up and I was like, hey, I'm about to have a panic attack. And you're like, what's wrong? What do you need from me? And I was like, shut up. Like, I'm sorry I woke you up, but shut the fuck up.
Yeah, you said shut up. And then we were just sitting there. I was like, do you need to go to the hospital? And you were like, I don't know. And then you sat there and you're like, talk to me, distract me. Yeah. And I'm like, you just told me to be quiet. I was so confused. I was so tired too.
I know. And it was like 2 a.m. or something. And I was like, okay, I need you to shut the fuck up, but also talk to me.
Yeah.
I don't know how more concise and specific I have to be with you. But I felt I was like, okay, I'm sitting down. I was reaching over for your hand. And I was like, okay.
I had you breathing through the Fruit Loop.
Yeah. I was like, okay, help me breathe. Talk to me. Say something. But shut the fuck up.
So
then sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say there's a breathing technique that. So I had we're kind of scrolling away for a second. I had AFib, got diagnosed, had really bad anxiety about having an AFib episode after I had the initial episode, and I was in the hospital for a day. So we were driving to the mall, and I had a fucking panic attack, and we had to pull over, and we drove to an ER because I thought I was dying again. And while I was there, they taught me a breathing technique, which was if you feel anxious, you're about to have a panic attack, they told me to blow through a hoop loop.
A hoop loop.
Blow through a Fruit Loop.
Uh-huh.
So it's you breathe in and then you purse your lips really close and really tight to where you're trying to blow a straight line through a hula hoop, through a Fruit Loop.
Jesus, man.
And you do it like for 7 minutes.
Times.
Yeah, you do it for a while until your breathing and your heart relax. And I feel like that has been, I tried doing a whole bunch of other shit. Mm-hmm. And I think that has been the one consistent thing that I still do to this day because it really helps me personally.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's kind of what I did too. It's like take a deep breath and let it out slowly. No, actually, you have to breathe really, really fast.
No, that's going to make it worse.
No,
do not do that.
Do not do that. Do not do that. But yeah, I was just like slowly breathing out, big breath and slowly breathing out. And then afterwards, I mean, I felt better, and we kind of laughed about it, and we were laying down. I was like, well, I can't go to sleep. Like, let's like watch something. And I don't know why. I opened up Hulu, and I put on The Bear, which is the absolute worst fucking show to put after a panic attack.
It's like you're fucking McDonald's working at a restaurant, fast-paced environment, like everybody saying cuss words and yelling at each other type of shit I've ever seen. It was stressful.
I mean, if anyone has seen it, they probably understand.
Well, if you've worked at a restaurant, you would know.
Yeah, that too. It's just very, like, they're all screaming at each other, and they're like, where's my onions? Where's my onions? Or whatever. But I was like, this is the worst fucking option. And I think after that, I just ended up falling asleep.
We still need to watch that show. I watched season 1, but we need to go back together and rewatch it.
Yeah. So I was just thinking, like, what would be shows that you could watch after a panic attack that isn't gonna trigger another panic attack?
Um,
And we talked about it a little bit.
yeah.
Bluey, I think is a good one.
I've never watched it, so I couldn't say yes or
I
no.
mean, I haven't either, but that's what I've read online, where it's like watching Bluey relaxes me, things like that. Um, but yeah, do you have any recommendations?
After that one time that I had, it wasn't a panic attack. It was I got AFib again.
Mm-hmm.
So they happened every once in a while, and it'd been a couple years since I had an attack, and I had one. Went to the ER. Afterwards, I felt so defeated and so sad. I don't know. It makes you. They always like make you feel really bad about it. They're like, "Oh, you're too young to be having one of these attacks. Like,
Yep.
what's wrong with you?" And then it's like, "Well, you need to make sure you're taking care of yourself because you could have a stroke." And they really scare you when these things happen. So, I was feeling very, I don't know, down in the dumps, and so we watched The Owl House.
Yeah.
It was in the middle of the night, and we watched The Owl House.
Wasn't it on my birthday?
I think it was on your
I think
birthday.
it was on my birthday. We woke up the next day and we're like, all right, so we're not going to work, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember that. That was interesting. I felt like that was a good option for a show
Yeah.
because it wasn't like a lot was happening. It wasn't the type of show where there's like constant moving.
Yeah.
Like it was just like an animated show. I mean, the main character, her name is Luz. She's Hispanic. Icon.
Killer Witch.
I don't know. I feel like there needs to be more shows. So if anyone has any recommendations of shows to watch after a panic attack,
Steven Universe.
let us know. I'm not watching Steven Universe.
It's so good.
I'm
Adventure
sorry.
Time.
Nah. Mm-mm.
I like the
It doesn't
dancing
even
bug
have to be
sound.
like animated. Just any show that you feel like this is relaxing.
La
This
Rosa
is
de
not
Guadalupe.
gonna. Hell no. Hell no. Coco Melon. No, I'm just kidding.
Emo.
Nah, not Coco Melon. So yeah, let us know. So recently started, what am I saying?
I don't know.
Talking about what we're watching. That's what I meant to say. Megan Thee Stallion came out with a documentary.
It was interesting.
It was good. I knew like all the songs, and I was like,
Oh my god.
I hope you understand how much I love Megan Thee Stallion. Afterwards, I was like, do you get it now? Do you get it? Megan, they can never make me hate you. I'm talking to her directly. Megan, they can never make me hate you.
That parasocial relationship is just jumping out, huh?
Yeah.
It was very interesting because I didn't know so many details about the case where she got shot in the foot.
Yeah.
And I feel like it happened. She was too scared to say anything at that time, so she lied, and then she told the truth when she was like, okay, no, this really happened.
It was when people were doubting her, saying that
and
she
people were like,
deserved
why
it
is
and
she
stuff
lying?
like
And it's
that.
like, okay, this happens with women all of the time. When they tell the truth, no one believes them. When they lie and then tell the truth, no one believes them.
And she explained why she lied. She's like, I lied because we were surrounded by police and he had a gun. I didn't want them to shoot him.
Yeah. It's like that was right after she mentioned it was right after the George Floyd incident. So she was like, it was already like a really weird time and she didn't want to cause anything.
And she said that she would have been the bad guy either way.
I support Megan.
Exactly. Squid Games 2 is coming out in December.
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited for it.
Squid Games, the first one was really good.
It really
The Korean
was.
version.
There's a not Korean version?
They're going to make another one. Like, I think there's an American version in the works.
And we're not watching.
No, we're not.
I'm just kidding.
I wanted to interject here and
Okay.
say that our prima, last name Martinez, sent us portraits of her dogs.
Oh, they were so
They
good.
were wearing they're wearing clothes. One of them, Pinto, he's sitting there with a little cow under his arm, and he's wearing like a jester outfit. It's
Me.
definitely artistic. And then the second one is Star, and she's wearing like a little military outfit. And it's like they have dog heads, but they have people bodies, and it's awesome. So I really like that.
Mm-hmm. Didn't you have another one? The Coraline one?
Let me see. The bad thing is that I can't mark these as like red.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then our other prima sent us a picture of her black dog.
Mhm.
And she's dressed like Coraline for Halloween.
Read the message. A ver. Leopoldo.
Well, you sent me the screenshot.
What?
And that's all you sent me.
Oh, yeah. So she tried to send it to us, but it was a request, so it didn't go through for some reason until I approve it. I didn't know there was a thing.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's so cute. Her little black dog is dressed in a little yellow raincoat and stuff. So is that supposed to be Coraline? Because at first when I saw it, I thought it was Georgie from It.
She said, I wanted to share my fur baby with you. This is Coco and a painting of her as Coraline. So Coco was in a little raincoat. Sorry, I forgot the word. And a little raincoat. And oh my gosh, she looks like my dog Lola.
Yeah.
Lola passed away.
Yeah.
But this is a painting of her in that little raincoat. And she looks so beautiful and cute. And I love her.
Love her.
So thank you for sharing. Please don't stop providing us pictures of your pets. I will watch them. I'll be like, hell yeah. Especially if they have clothes. Are you serious?
They
Pets
hate
with clothes?
They hate wearing clothes, but we love seeing them in clothes.
There was for Halloween, I don't know where we went. I think it was Target. There was a hot dog costume. And I was like, Leo needs this.
Yeah.
But we couldn't find another one for Venus. I think it was like the very end of October.
Yeah.
So it was
like all the aisles were super empty. I don't know, like, no tea, no shade, but I feel like lately Target just doesn't stock very well at all. Even during like the height of some of the.
Well, that was just like the Halloween section.
That's what I mean. Even when it just started, it's kind of empty though. Like they never stock them enough.
Well, no, it's because they stock them months in advance, and by the time we get to them in October, it's like they've already been
incorrect. I worked retail. They do it.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Incorrect. If we got any primos, primas, and primas that work at Target, please let us know. Why are the shelves empty?
Look at how he fights me. Look how he wants to fight.
Vine boom. Boom.
Vine boom. I have a few more things, and then we can.
Sorry, I didn't mean to fight you that bad. It's just I worked retail and I have trauma.
So, I saw a tweet of someone that is not Hispanic, but they said having a Mexican roommate, I caught myself saying, dude, imagine. And I thought it was so funny.
Dude, imagine if you had a Mexican roommate.
And when I told you that, you looked at me and I was like, what does that look mean? And you're like, you do that. I'm like, no fucking way. And then after a while, I did kind of catch it. I was like, I do that.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, imagine if.
Yeah, you say, dude, imagine, or you say, instead of saying because, you say because. And I cannot
Is that
help
a Hispanic thing?
But yes, because I cannot hear but help it every time you say it. I hear it.
Dude,
It's
imagine if I said
whatever.
because.
Yeah, you say because.
Dude, imagine. I don't know. Bro, imagine if I didn't say that.
I know, huh?
Bitch.
I know.
Shut up. I thought that was so funny, but the other day I saw a reel on Instagram of some guy that's like, born to say hear ye, forced to say hey foo, imagine.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, that literally is us.
Yeah.
Literally, because, I mean, it's the same thing. Saying, dude, imagine is the modern interpretation of saying hear ye. Like, I got some news for you. Saying, bro, imagine is like saying, I got some chisme for you.
Yeah.
It's literally saying, I'm just talking shit.
Dude, I do it in Spanish.
I'm just saying whatever.
Have you noticed that I do that in Spanish?
What?
There are certain times where, your mom was saying something earlier, and I was like, Ma?
Yeah.
And you were like, you say that a lot. And I'm
yeah, you do.
Oh.
Because I'd never heard that until I came into contact with Mexicans from Oklahoma. I was like,
I think it's a
you
northern.
guys talk like that?
I think it's a northern Mexican thing.
Yeah.
You're in you're in disbelief. Like, what the fuck?
It's actually Chinese. They're saying ma. It means horse.
Okay.
Just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Understood.
I'm just kidding.
Or I feel like a lot of my northern Mexican people say imagínate instead of imagínate. Imagínate.
I think is that like a Mexican American thing to say, like,
know.
dude, imagine?
No, pues.
Because, like, do they say that in Mexico and they're like, wait, imagínate?
Yeah.
Actually, they do, right?
Yeah. But people from northern Mexico say imagínate.
Imagínate.
And then no, pues. No, pues es que no sé. And then what's the other one that you mentioned? The oiga. Oiga.
Oh, yeah. I did notice that. I feel like your cousin Rigo says that a lot.
Yeah.
When he's like, oiga. And I get it. Because I think to northern Mexican people, it sounds like a respectful, like,
Yeah.
hey.
Listen here.
But to me, being like southern Mexican, I feel like that sounds a little rude.
Yeah. Like
To
you're
say,
like, I'm forcing you to listen. Listen
it's
to what I have
like
to
saying,
say.
hey. Where,
Yeah.
like, I don't know, like, not that it's, like, disrespectful, but it seems a little too assertive. I don't know.
Yeah.
A little too aggressive.
It's because I think you're thinking it of like, oiga is like, listen to me.
Yeah.
Where oiga, like, as I understand it, is you're calling you're calling someone's attention. Like you're saying, hey,
Yeah.
hey, do you have a second? Like,
Disculpe.
yes.
Dispense usted.
It's kind of along the same lines. Like it just oiga like means listen to me, but it doesn't actually mean that.
Yeah. So I have one more thing. I have two more things, but I can save one for next
Yes.
next episode. So I found out that my great uncle used to astral project.
Oh my god, I was shook when your dad was telling us that.
Literally, I
Why
hate
did
how
I-
they keep these little morsels of fun facts from me.
Yeah.
So-
You want to tell the story of why we got
Yeah.
onto the subject? Because
Yeah.
your dad was telling us
Let's
some
go.
crazy ass shit.
Let's go. So my parents just went to Florida. They got back, and they were talking to me about how my dad said that he had trouble sleeping.
Yes.
And he's like, the other times that I've gone, I have never had trouble sleeping. But he said that it felt like it was like a weird between stage between sleeping and or being awake and dreaming, because he said that it felt like he was dreaming that someone walked into the room and said, hey, I'm here to help you
The
clean
owner
or
of the
something.
house.
Yeah, like the owner, because I think it was an Airbnb.
They stayed at an Airbnb, and the owner of the house, since they had to give a little context, they had communicated and talked on the phone.
But
Like
they
so
never
they
saw
kind
each
of
other.
so they kind of knew each other like over the phone.
But he didn't know what he looked like.
Yeah.
So he said that he walked in. He said it was like 2 a.m. that he felt like he was sleeping. He walked in and he said, hey, are you okay? Do you need anything from me? And he said no, and then he left. And then the next day he had that same dream where it was like a weird dream where he said that he snapped. I don't know. I felt like I asked him to clarify several times and I still didn't fully get it.
So he was dreaming.
But-
He was saying that he was dreaming that he was sleeping, but it was
Yeah.
like this was just like normal to him that they would walk in and they're like, "Hey, we're here to. I brought somebody to clean.
Yes.
I came to check in on you, and I brought people to clean the room. Like we're gonna pick up."
Yeah.
And that your dad was saying, no, it's fine. And he's like, no, we're already here. Let us clean. We'll clean quickly and we'll get out.
And he said, I have 2 people here that'll help me clean. And he said, my dad said that it was 2 very small people. And he said, are you sure? Like, do they need help? Because it looks like they're going to struggle cleaning.
Because they were tiny.
Because they were very small people. And when he said that, I was like, Dad, that's kind of fucked up. But then,
And then I said, those are duendes.
I was like, what if they're duendes? And then my dad said that he got chills when we mentioned that. He's
Yeah.
like, I didn't think about that.
He's like, they got duendes in Florida. And I'm like, wherever there are Hispanic people, there are duendes there.
Even beyond that, because native
Yeah.
people from this continent,
Irish people, we literally talk about this all the
there's
time.
duendes everywhere.
Yeah.
They're all around us.
We have one. His name's Leo.
But my dad said that. He's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. And then afterwards, I was like, well, did anything from yours go missing? And he said, he looked up at me with his eyes wide and he said, my jacket.
Yeah.
He said that. And my mom too. My mom came in like at that point in the conversation and she said, oh, I left my jacket. And my mom's like, oh, I left my coat too. I left my coat. Because I mean, it was Florida, so they didn't think about it, but they left it in the closet. And they said that when they left, they went through the entire room. They didn't find anything of theirs. And they're like, okay, we're ready to go. So they said they were in the airport and that there was a girl in front of them in line that had a jacket wrapped around her waist. And that my mom was like, my jacket. And my dad's like, it's okay, I forgot mine too.
Oh my God.
And I was like, dude, those duendes are rocking your shit.
Yeah.
They have your
They're about
jacket.
to be warm.
They
But
have
then
your jacket.
that like conversation kind of led into like that his dad was talking about that like his dreams were really fucking weird the whole time he was there.
Yeah.
And so Kevin brought up the fact of like, hey, have you ever watched Insidious?
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of like, you gave him the synopsis of what that movie was. And then he's like, and then you explained, oh, that's like, it's like it has to do with astral projecting. Have you ever astral projected?
Mm-hmm.
It's when this happens. And then that's when he's like, your great uncle used to do that.
So my uncle Javier, I mentioned him on the podcast before. He was the one that found out he had COVID after his wife made a really spicy salsa. And he said, this isn't spicy at all. And he's like, Javier, you have COVID.
Oh my God.
Like, that's how they found out.
That was like 30 episodes ago that we talked about that.
Yeah, that was a while back. Since then, he has passed away. So my dad said that whenever, my grandpa passed away too. So it was my great uncle and my grandpa that have passed away since then. And my dad said that sometimes he sees them in his dreams, but they don't talk. They're just out in like the background. And when he wants them to talk, they don't. And that he says when he sees them and he wants them to say something, he like snaps. He snaps and wakes up. He's like, okay.
Once he realizes, like, what did he say? That he realizes that they're past and he wants to talk to them, he wakes up.
Yeah. Because, I mean, when you're in a dream, you don't realize you're dreaming necessarily. But until something like that breaks your reality, it's like, oh, okay, he's awake. But he did say that my uncle Javier used to astral project. That he said that he would go to sleep, but then see himself sleeping and then go to another room and then come back. And he said that he got really scared one time.
He used to do it all the time.
He used to do it all the time
and
until one
go
point.
to different places and visit different people and things until an incident. And so, go ahead.
Do you remember the incident? I forgot.
Yeah, that he left his body, and while he was out, he saw an Apache Native American.
Oh, yes.
Dressed in like Apache garb, like just with the arrows on the back, like his bow, like just dressed in feathers and stuff. And that he was like, you're not going anywhere. Like, you're staying here with me. You're not going to go back to your body.
Well, he said that it was in his house, that he was astral projecting and he was in his house and he saw that Apache man. And he said that he got scared, and ever since then, he like refused to do it.
Yeah, he never astral projected after that because he like ran away from him and went back to his body or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so like he never did it again. But I thought that was fucking scary.
That was crazy because my dad had never even known, or I guess he knew what the concept was, but he didn't think it was like, I don't know, like, I was like, girl, that's a movie plot.
And then afterwards, your dad nonchalantly was like, I've astral projected too. And we were like, what happened? And he's like, one time I was really sick and they gave me penicillin and I was allergic. And then I saw my body and we were like, and he's like, so really I was dying and I was outside of my body. So maybe not astral projecting, maybe a near death experience. Yeah. But then I went back to my body and we were like, what the fuck? We were just both like, what the hell?
Like, are you okay?
He was like super nonchalant about it. And he's like, I'm alive. You're born. It's fine.
I was like, thanks. He was like a young kid then too. Yeah. So I was like, that's crazy.
Note to self, never inject yourself with penicillin.
And he's allergic. So my dad's such a character. Love him.
Yep.
But yeah, and I think that's a good point to stop this episode.
See you guys next episode then.
We've been ranting a while.
Yeah. There's a lot to talk about. We had a lot to say.
Yeah, this was a lot. This is a very long episode too. So I know a lot of you guys like that.
Yeah.
And depending on how everything works out, maybe this will be on YouTube. Maybe. If not, I'll remove this part. But I'm working a few things out.
Okay.
Anyway.
Goodbye.
Your outro, bitch.
I don't have it pulled up. You need to read it. My computer died like 10 minutes ago.
Oh my God. Thanks for listening. Please follow us on Instagram at Qué Spooky Podcast, on Twitter at Qué Spooky Pod, and on TikTok at Qué Spooky Podcast. Also, email us any story suggestions or your own scary stories at quespookypodcast@gmail.com. Special thanks to Taylor Turner for the artwork, Kyle Fields for the intro music, and Leonardo for the logo redesign. And don't forget to tell someone how much they mean to you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.